Thank you, Brian Rock. Good morning, everybody, to my West Coast participants. Good morning to everybody else, not in the morning. It's good afternoon. So my name is John Matthew. I'm with Red8. I've been here about 2 years. I run the Cloud and Automation Group. We do a lot of really cool stuff. We'll talk today about Microsoft 365. A real quick background on myself. I come from the IT space. This is my first foray into being on the partner side. So I have a lot of experience with the pain of running infrastructure, specifically Exchange. I was at NBC Universal for the good part of 12 years. 10 of those years, or 9 to 10 of those years, I ran email for 25,000 users. So I can fully attest to the pain, and we'll cover all that about why, if I were still there, I would want to migrate to Office 365. So with that, we'll get started. Again, welcome to our RedTALK series. This is being recorded for those of you that have colleagues or whatever that want to watch this. That would be great. So first thing, a little background on Insight Investments. And Red8 is part of a family of 3 companies that are Insight Investments. They started with Insight Financial Services, which is a leasing arm in the fact that we get to do our own leases. We don't have to go through a bank. So we can make deals for amazing things. I'm not a lease guy. I've learned a lot about leasing being at this company, but they do some amazing products, and those things can be had if in speaking to your sales rep. Our next company would be Second Gear. This is something I've personally always wanted to do in my entire career. You know, you set up a data center, you build it, you put all these beautiful servers in, switches and everything, and then somebody comes and tells you, well, it's 4 years, it's time to pull those out and put new ones in. And I would sort of cry and say, but it doesn't need to go away. Second Gear comes along, and they take those out for people, they refurbish them, they make them better, and they resell them. Now, right now, unfortunately due to the pandemic, the unfortunate pandemic, I should say, their Second Gear business is killing it, right? There's news articles now that literally schools cannot get enough laptops. Right now, Second Gear is selling hundreds of thousands of laptops. They do the same thing with laptops. They refurbish them. They help customers set them up. Again, another arm of our business that is under Insight Investments. The company we're with is Red8. We are your classic VAR that does IT services, IT setup, data center, moves, cloud moves, all that stuff. And today we are putting on this webinar around Microsoft 365. So again, welcome everybody to the webinar. The 5 areas that really Red8 Services focuses on are we have the data center space, which is your traditional, we set up data centers, build platforms, VMware, you know, everything from NetApp to UCS, the like of all the physical hardware in the data center. Obviously an on-prem, let's say, Exchange solution, which we'll talk a little bit about today. And then we also cover the gamut, right? Backup recovery, DR, the whole bit. We then move, our company's been moving more into a services-based environment. Security is a large part of what we do. We come in, we do assessments, we look at what you have as far as a security platform. If you're moving to the cloud, what does that look like? If you want to improve what you have, we look at what that looks like. We do engagements of all types. We can do, you know, staff aug, all sorts of that. So we have a large security practice. The area that my team focuses on, and I think it's the coolest one, of course, is the DevOps Cloud and Automation, right? So we come in and we look at if you've got areas that you want to improve on in terms of process improvement, we can come in. We also work closely with development teams, so we can come in and automate and help your teams get up to speed on the latest and greatest, make them much more efficient, spend their time worried more about their code base than they do about the infrastructure they're hosting it on. So we have classes, we have training solutions, we do a lot with Red Hat, with Ansible, we do a lot with OpenShift. We have something called GitOps, a GitOps workshop we do that's been very successful, all of the above. And then on the cloud side, right, we help companies go to cloud, maintain the cloud, stay in the cloud, make the cloud an affordable place. You would say that Microsoft 365 probably falls under this space, and we'll cover that more. And lastly, we have an advanced analytics. This is becoming very big. In fact, there's a new push, and Brian will be sending out updates about this around the advanced analytics. This space is really hot. I don't know if you guys, any of you follow the stock market, but NVIDIA's stock is killing it right now because of AI and the like. So You've got the clouds coming up with instances around specific AI workloads, GPUs, et cetera. So another big area for us. So today we're here to talk about Microsoft 365, and I'm sure most of you have heard about it. You've heard at least of Office 365. Microsoft 365 combines all of the great features of Office 365 and combines them with Microsoft Windows into a product under a license. We'll talk specifically about those licensing, but it basically gives you a one-stop license for all of the above, right? You've got all of the Microsoft Office features, you've got Outlook, you've got Excel, Word, etc. You've got this new thing called OneDrive, if you're not familiar with that, which is an amazing product. We'll look at that a little bit too. And then you've got something called Yammer, which I basically say is Facebook for the enterprise. So it's pretty cool. On the security front, you've got new management of your devices through Microsoft, the Microsoft portal on the web. You can combine that with Teams, and you can also use the voice system of the Microsoft Teams environment. So the Teams voice piece is basically going to replace Skype for Business. In fact, I believe Skype for Business was end-of-lifed last year or started this year, as well as something near and dear to my heart, which is Project. Microsoft Project is one of those pieces of software that has been very powerful, but has always been a desktop app. They've moved that to the online space. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And as I mentioned, the security and compliance, we'll have a whole slide on that regarding how do you improve your security with the Microsoft 365 license. So I do want to talk a little bit about SaaS. So for those of us that don't know what SaaS is, software as a service, basically a cloud app, right? So what does the cloud have to offer us, right? The cloud does two things extremely well. Number one, I would say everybody realizes this, or maybe don't, it scales really quickly and almost infinitely. I know the word infinite is a stretch, but literally you can scale it up to whatever size you need. We have customers that run workloads that run, say, 2 or 3 either containers or VMs, and they scale up to thousands, and they do it very quickly. Right? Imagine, specifically around the talk we're having today, imagine if you had an influx of users in your email system and you needed to build out that infrastructure very quickly. That would be a very laborious and time-consuming process. So in the SaaS front for email specifically, that's really well. It also does things, it's agile in that you can shut it down as well, right? So you can go the other direction. This slide here is basically, a good marketing slide for Microsoft. It's showing, and this is across the board for a lot of companies in a lot of areas, but you've got a lot of companies moving to a SaaS model. So the question is, why would you move to a SaaS model? That is easy. That's an easy question, right? So you have a lot of on-premise apps that potentially could be. Let's look at HR. In today's call, we're talking about email and some other areas. Right? You have a lot of on-premise, what we were calling pain points. You've got, security add-ons, limited collaboration. This is going to be a big one coming up. Compliance issues, mobility issues, who provisions this stuff, is their time in the budget acceptable, right? All of this stuff, unpredictable budgets. This could be a big one, right? If all of a sudden you get a big project comes up and they say, I need 200 terabytes of space, gee, boss, we don't have that kind of space sitting around. So again, the cloud does provide that flexibility that you need in a SaaS model. Depends on what you're doing. Again, covering all that. So a couple areas that we're going to spend some time on are the collaboration as well as the mobility, right? I'll talk a little bit more about those in just a moment. But the basic idea is that you could take an application that is hosted on-premise, right, what we call off-the-shelf, or let's call it a category of an app, and then you can run that in the SaaS model. Again, email is a good example. Salesforce, right? Huge SaaS application for companies. ServiceNow, right? They have taken over the space of a ticketing system, right? They're completely SaaS-based. There is no on-premise hardware that you need to maintain. So this is a big market. I can go into with you individually if you're curious about what the cloud offers. This is sort of the pinnacle of all of the pieces that the cloud offers is software as a service, right? This infinitely scalable. Another one that comes to mind is, say, Spotify, right? Spotify is in the cloud. Not a business app, but again, something that they can scale up and down for the demand as needed. And again, unfortunately, due to COVID, right, you've got a lot of, I'm phrasing that wrong. Unfortunately, we have COVID, right? A lot of lockdown, a lot of people working remote. You'll read lots of articles about, let's say, Google Hangouts is stressed. You've got WebEx was stressed, Zoom, big in the market, right? All of these are SaaS apps that we're able to quickly scale and meet the demand of what's coming. Specifically around Exchange, right? You have that's not a stock market photo there on the bottom left. That is actually the number of users moving to Office 365, right? So Office 365 is the Office piece of the model. The Microsoft part adds security and Windows licensing to that, so you get the same sort of adoption there. A lot of good numbers here. Basically, the growth rate is incredible for people that are moving here, and frankly, as a person that used to support Exchange, I would be all on board with moving this. As fun as that was, supporting 25,000 users across 150 servers globally, boy, this would have been a great choice to have back in the day. So, like I said, a lot of I'll talk to my pain points specifically around that. So, is Microsoft 365 the answer? Red8 obviously thinks it is. I think it's a great product. It combines the best of everything. It's changing radically all the time. Because it's a SaaS model, they can do this. So, good, another eye candy slide from Microsoft, right? You've got, on the left here, you've got legacy platforms, right? You've got, hopefully nobody on the call is still running Windows 7 or Windows 8, but if you are, those are end of life now. Certain avenues of Office are end of life. But more importantly, you've got a scattering of technology that needs to be taken care of, right? So you've got, in the last, oh my gosh, 3 or 4 years, right, the fact that people bring their own phones to work and then they want to get all their email on it, the IT administrators are like, wait a second, hold on, you could do some bad stuff. I need to manage those better, right? How do you purchase stuff like that? How is a person who has their own device and desktop and potentially a cafe thing, how are they licensed, right? All of these things come along. We buy new PCs. They don't come with the right Windows license. What do we do there, right? Stuff like that. And then on the bottom right, you've got different products that are going to handle everything, right? We mentioned Dropbox, Google, McAfee here. We'll see what Microsoft's solution is to those and how those are on par, if not better, than those existing ones there. And then again, your back office stuff. You can't forget this because this is really from a architecture perspective, this runs a lot of it, right? You've got Windows 2008 R2 and better are now end of life. Those need to be fixed. You've got some login issues. You've got Active Directory, massive thing. So one of the businesses that we have at Red8 is we do Active Directory assessments and upgrades and the like. We have an entire arm of our business on that because Active Directory was one of those things that was installed, let's call it, I don't know, 20 years ago, 15 years ago in companies, and it is the legacy software from Microsoft, critical importance to the company. But the guys who built it are long gone, or gals who built it are long gone. So Red8 can come in, help you with that. A little side sales pitch there for you. But again, these are all very important. All of these things on the slide are extremely important to running your business and keeping everything going well. So why would you upgrade? Again, we just saw the fragmented slide there. There's 4 areas that we focus in on this presentation, right? Reduced IT strain, increased costs, flexible licensing, and ROI, right? Some of these are going to be direct quotes from Microsoft around what they've done. Let's get into the strain area, though. So the strain area, I can really relate to this immediately. I've quoted some of our customers down here in the bottom right. One of the queries I do is like, hey, how big is your Exchange environment? How much space does it take up? And they usually say, wow, our largest VMs or servers are running Exchange. And that's cool, right? Email is extremely important. It also is, and it's gotten better over the years, it is a beast to manage. There's a lot of stuff there, and what you're finding is the specialty of running email is waning in the data center. You've got people that are more jack of all trades than specialists like I was back in the day, right? So you've got lots of mailbox servers with massive CPU and memory requirements, and then not to mention storage, right? You've got some some great storage options in the Exchange space. They've done a lot of good things here, but again, it's still a lot of things to manage. And again, it is probably one of the top 5 or 3 applications in a company that just needs to stay running all the time, right? So you got that, you've got edge servers, right? But then I ask questions like, okay, so that's great. So how do you guys let your customers, i.e. your internal employees, get to their email? Well, inside, that's easy. What about when they're home? What about they're on vacation, they're in a cafe, or they're whatever, right? Do you guys provide VPN? Oh yeah, we got to have them VPN in. We can't have them going to the, can't open up the network to the internet, right? That would be bad. Oh, that's a good point. So now we got VPN licenses. We got to deal with training. We got to deal with all this stuff, right? Are your SSL certs up to date and maintained, right? You'll see alerts like so-and-so, I forget what it was recently, some service went down, right? Because they let their SSL cert expire. Silly things, but again, you don't want to, this is all stuff that's on your plate as a Exchange person to manage. Then mobile, right? Mobile is a huge thing now, right? In the last 3 to 5 years, this has become enormous, right? You need a good mobile client. That mobile client needs to be able to connect in, right? You have the architecture inside of your environment to do that. And then the other one is storage planning. This was always the bane of my existence. I need more mailbox space. Today, it's not such a big deal. But again, a 50 gig mailbox, right, that adds up pretty quick. Again, in my day, right, at NBCU, they used to run movies, right? So a movie comes along, they want 300 people to get mailboxes, right? 300 times 50 gig, I can't even do the math. That's a lot of space that I just need to have sitting around. So again, 50 gig mailboxes, what if someone says, hey, I don't want to have a limit, I want unlimited mailboxes, right? We've never heard that before. That would be nice to have, but again, that's more infrastructure I need to manage. Security is a big thing. So I get audits because my company needs to be secure. They come in, they audit my Exchange environment. Oh my God, there we go. How about DR? Does everyone have DR ready for if you live in California, and sadly Northern California, right, you're done. Your fires are there. In California alone, we've got blackouts, and then sadly we have this pandemic. So lots of questions. I would say that the pandemic has tested the ability of a lot of IT groups lately, and it's unfortunate it came to this, but it has shown that some groups aren't ready for these kinds of situations, right? And that's why you want to go to a SaaS model for Exchange. And lastly, I bring up, and those of you that know Exchange and Mac clients, man, what a pain in the ass. I'm sorry for the language, but the Mac client, the Outlook client for Mac has never been on par with Windows. However, as we'll see in a minute, we'll talk about in a minute, is you now have a web interface for Outlook for your Mac that is literally the same as a Windows client. So again, that problem goes away. Like I said, I've speak to these all personally because I've had to deal with them on every level. On the Office 365 space, right? This is, they keep improving this. So it used to be you get Windows updates here and there. You can now get Windows updates about once a month for all these products. So you've got all of these that are updated on your desktop. Now, again, we'll talk about licensing in just a minute, but what if I don't need those on the desktop and I just need some guy with a Chromebook and he gets, she gets Outlook, right? We'll see that that's available as well. Another couple new members to the team, OneDrive and Teams. So OneDrive, think of that as your box drive. That allows you to keep keep and share your files up in the cloud, right? And it does a tremendous job of this. And look at that number, right? 5 terabytes per person. And I'm like, wait, what? What is that? Wait, I get 5 terabytes to store either locally and or in the cloud. That's a huge number, right? I mean, I don't know of anybody that's got that kind of ability on their desktop, right? So that's incredible, and that's all included with a license for Microsoft 365 per user. That's crazy. Teams, which is a great product, we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's a wrapper that Microsoft is building. That is their sort of everything, right? All your bases belong to us, as I say later. And here's the killer thing, is that there's web versions of all of this that are very, I would say, 80 to 90% on par with the desktop version, right? So again, if you have customers clients that are remote or just want to have a very light interface to their applications, boom, it's right there, right? So I talked earlier about remote access using VPN and all this other stuff. All of that is automatic through Microsoft 365 because your stuff is living in the cloud with a SaaS model, okay? I saw a question come by there. I'll reference that in just a second. So again, if I want to go work remote at home, I want to work remote at the beach like I might do Friday, or I want to work in a cafe, I can do that, right? I'm remote access, and we'll talk about the security wrappers around that Microsoft provides, but I as an infrastructure person or an IT person don't need to worry about how are people getting to their data because their Microsoft 365 data is all in the cloud, okay? So that's an important part. Collaboration, I'm not sure what that word is. Brian, did you mess with the slides at all?
Oh, let me go in and change that. Sorry about that, John.
Okay, so I'm not sure. That's the kind of spelling I would use. Brian Rock is our genius in marketing. Okay, thank you. So what you just saw there was literally Brian changing stuff in real time, right? Google came out with this feature years ago called Google Docs, right? I put it in quote there for a reason. Great product, a limited version of sort of the Office suite. All of your Office applications now have this ability, all of them, right? All the ones we listed, right? Well, obviously not Outlook, but Excel, Word, PowerPoint, right? Project, these are all real-time collaborative projects with your customers, with your teams. This was, I won't say impossible to do before, but this was a stretch before. Now, with Microsoft 365, this is out of the box, ready to go. You saw it there live. This wasn't some trickery, right? He can go change it back if I wanted him to, right? So again, I think this is a huge feature, right? And then when you move into Teams, you wrap it all into one interface. And Teams has gotten a lot of grief in the last year because of the pandemic, and they're limited. Like, they weren't ready to add all the features they've added in the last 6 to 9 months, but they are changing Teams, I would say weekly practically, of updates. Because here at Red 8, we use Teams, right? There's a lot of complaining about it. And so they have been improving Teams a lot. When I say complaining, it's just a different interface to what they've already been doing, right? So some examples, right? Breaking out meetings. The voice piece has gotten way better. Their mobile client is tremendous. I use it for everywhere. So as you can tell, I'm sort of the Microsoft fanboy here. I do love Teams. I think it's great. I think all of these features are tremendous ideas. I did see a question roll by, and I'll keep this kind of real time, about the 5 terabytes. 5 terabytes is actually the minimum that you get per user. If you need more, you just ask, and Microsoft will go to as large as you want. They are really in the market here to move everyone to Office, the Microsoft 365 licensing. And I tell this to our Microsoft customers, right? Microsoft has been in the data center business for a long, long time. They've owned the desktop for a long, long time. People may or may not like that. It's just the reality, right? So they started with Windows 95, on up the chain, right? People have run Microsoft on their desktop many, many years. And now with the cloud and the adoption, in the last 3 to 5 years, Microsoft is taking out all the stops to move you to the cloud, period, right? They have changed their subscription model. They're giving you 5 terabytes. They're doing all this stuff to get everybody moved because they know that that's the wave of the future. So hopefully that answers the question. If not, we can address it. And then we have another good question coming by. I'll get to that in a second. Microsoft security, right? So Microsoft has an amazing team. I forget how many thousands of people are looking at the loggings and all this stuff, right? They've wrapped all this in Azure Active Directory. So basically, your Active Directory is replicated up to the cloud and is free. I put that in quotes, right? There are limits on the free side of it, but it's relatively inexpensive. The really cool part about that is once you replicate your Active Directory, right, you can set policies around who gets access to what in the cloud. Now, obviously, the on-prem stuff is your domain, but if you want to say, you know what, if you're logging in from Europe and you're going to your Outlook from Europe, right, you can say, I want you to prompt for multi-factor authentication. That's just a policy, right? When you land back in the States, and you go and you log, oops, sorry, my bad. You log in from a cafe here, you don't get MFA requirements, right? So you've got lots of policy ability there with regards to what people can and can't do in your Active Directory in the cloud, which is a tremendous idea, right? You've got, on certain licenses, you've got mobile device management and security with Intune, so you can allow people to use those BYOD devices, bring your own devices, to get into their products like I do, right, for Red8, but yet I can manage what they can and can't do on the device specifically around those Microsoft products, right? There's a feature in one of the licenses, or you could buy separately, called Azure ATP. And basically what this is, it takes all of your Active Directory, and again, this was something I needed when I was back in the day, right? Look at all your Exchange logs, all your Active Directory logs, and see if there's anything going on that's kind of funky, right? See if there's a bad actor in there. I formerly was at a large tool manufacturer that some of you may know. They had gotten bad actors in their environment twice. Had they had ATP, that may or probably wouldn't have happened, right? They probably would have caught that person or that actor and shut it down pretty quick. So Azure ATP is an option for you in certain licenses, or you could buy it separately. It is, again, using the scalability and the expertise of Microsoft Cloud to protect your Active Directory. And then you can also use Active Directory around other applications in the cloud. Salesforce, you could use it for Box, Google, anything you want, right? Your Active Directory is now sitting in the cloud, available to those applications and things that you want. Moving on. So lastly, again, I don't know if anybody on the call doesn't already know this, but basically this stuff a lot of this stuff is end of life. Office 2010, Windows 7, and earlier, those things are all end of life. Like Windows 7 was early, and then Office and the others, the like, are end of life the end of this year in October. So again, important stuff. Moving to Microsoft 365 gets rid of that. They've moved to a new subscription model, which is basically, we'll see in a second, you pay a monthly subscription, but you have a continuous updated environment, right? Similar, for those of you who know about software assurance, but not the same thing, right? There's a lot more flexibility here in that subscription model. So speaking of that, right, you've got two areas for subscriptions that Microsoft does. They have a business model, which is less than 300 users, which ranges anywhere from $5 to $20 a user per month. And that gets you basically everything a small to medium business would need. They vary in price based on feature set, of course. You can have a strictly web user, or I just want Outlook in the cloud. I want to keep my desktop Office old and slow, or whatever you want to do, or I can go to the full-blown $20 user, get all the features, right? That's good for up to 300 users. If you have more than 300 users, right, you would move up to the enterprise license. That ranges from $10 to $57 a user, right? These are MSRP prices. And that can include integrated voice and the security, the Azure ATP we talked about. Again, they make it as flexible as possible, okay, and allow you, let me just make sure, okay, yeah, they give you this broad choice of options here. Now, in the past, you had to have a PhD in Microsoft licensing, and for those of you that have been down that road, you're kind of laughing, I hope, at what that means. This model is much simpler. You pick and choose what you want and go from there. All right, flexible purchasing. This is, I think, one of the top reasons why subscription models are going that way, right? You have one license to cover everything on the desktop. No more CALs, no more desktop licenses, no more any of this stuff, right? You're able to buy this license for a month and get the users the features they need, right? So why would you go to a monthly billing when I have customers that, I have employees that stay there? Well, what if certain people come and go, right? That you could have temps, you could have contractors, could be whatever you need. And more importantly, let's say I don't want to dive into the deep end on subscriptions. I would like to try out certain features, right? Well, I can buy a lower license, keep it for a month, but then change that up as I want if I buy the monthly thing. Now, you can also buy the yearly billing. You save a little bit of money there. And the important thing is, which, again, under the SA model before, or even the small business model, you couldn't really do this. But now you can, based on individual licenses per user, covers the broad range of what's on their desktop and in the cloud, right? You've got this one license to cover everything, but you can also mix and match. And like I said, we've had customers that want to just Exchange in the cloud. We have customers that want to just have the web interface to their stuff. All of these things adjust your pricing, and you have a very clear picture of what each user's costs are going to be. I remember we used to do licensing powwows at my former job, and it was just a nightmare. Okay, we have these users on Exchange, and we have their desktops. We bought the laptop? Does it come with a license? All of these questions are pretty much gone at that point. Lastly, I mentioned we're going to have a nice little slide here, right? Return on investment, right? Say time saved. I would say, I don't know. My personal opinion is these numbers are close, because the amount of time we spent with Exchange and all of that, the team I had, the support I had, all of that was pretty expensive. So Microsoft's given us a nice Forrester numbers here. Take it for what it's worth. But I definitely believe there is savings in moving to a Microsoft 365 license. All right, so all of this is great, but why would you pick Red 8, right? Red 8's got the best. We've done a lot with Microsoft 365. We've done a lot of installs. I've got my associate Sanjay on the call just in a second here. And we look at the solution. We don't look at a point problem. We look at the big picture of what's this company trying to do, right? Are they trying to just move to Microsoft 365? Are they trying to automate their environment? Are they trying to secure their environment? We come in with a large umbrella. We've got lots of case studies around not just Microsoft 365, but other areas that we can talk about, right? And the idea is we do it quicker, we do it better, and we lower your risk when doing that. So with that, I want to introduce my good friend, Sanjay Malzare. I hope I got that right. And he's going to talk a little bit about the next few slides about some of the work we've done with the Microsoft 365. Take it away, Sanjay.
Hey, John, thank you. Great information. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. So, Office 365, as somebody just like John, I started my career doing data center work, designing and building data centers, and really doing all of the infrastructure the old way, if I may call it that, right? And for those of you who have done that, it is extremely hard to do it well. It takes a lot of hard work and talent to make sure that it's configured right, it's designed right, and it can be operated right. So the cloud, when I first saw how this was possible in the cloud, I said, wait a minute, this is what I do for a living, but this is actually better because now it's available, as a SaaS offering, right? So Office 365 came out, I want to say in 2011, right, in beta. And then we started doing some of our early migrations really I want to say like late 2012, right? And over the last, 8 years, we have seen Office 365 iterate, evolve, and right now, I'm convinced there is not anything like it in the market, right? So in terms of value for money, in terms of the maturity of the overall platform, and just the package that Microsoft has made available in this portfolio is just phenomenal, right? There is not anything like it. You can go compare it to, like, let's say G Suite, which at least has a few things within that bundle. But M365 is by far the better value for your business, right? So, we have done this over the last 6-7 years across really multiple industry verticals. We have done this for SaaS companies, software companies, healthcare providers, pharmaceuticals, banks, very large banks, financial services, public sector organizations, retail, manufacturing. So we have clients that will happily answer the phone and speak of the work that we did for them. So John made me go back and kind of count how many mailboxes we have migrated so far. We are upwards of 250,000 mailboxes that we have migrated over the last 5+ years. And really, if there is a complex migration scenario out there, we have run into it, and we have got the scar tissue to show for it. So all of that experience, all of that practitioner knowledge is obviously in your service, and when you're ready to have those conversations and do the whiteboarding, we'd be happy to talk that through with you. So, as part of these engagements, really, because each migration is different and unique, but what we focus on is pre-migration, we want to ensure that we have a good understanding of your current state, right? So that includes discovery of all the foundational components, discovery of your Active Directory, discovery of your current Exchange environment, the versions, the patch levels, the health, how is your synchronization set up, is it working well? So all of those foundational components, they have to be healthy for your migration to be successful. So initially we make sure that there isn't anything that needs to be remediated prior to migration. So that's our discovery and assessment. And then we start, designing your Office 365 tenants. So, is it going to be a hybrid design? Is it going to be a, big bang type cutover? Then we do the pilot, right? So this is very important, especially as the size of the organization increases. It's important to pick the right kind of user set and do a pilot, ensure that the migration process can be smooth. The mailboxes appear as we think they would appear, all the data is there, and public folders, PSTs, all of that, right? So that's our pilot. And then from there, once the pilot is successful, sometimes we do 2 pilots. Again, it's good to test out the different scenarios, different locations geographically. It has dependency on underlying bandwidth, right? Because you need network bandwidth to be able to support a certain type of migration velocity. And then once we have had the successful pilots behind us, that drives the confidence for you and your leadership to know that this is going to work out well. And that's when we start increasing the velocity of the migrations, right? So we could go from doing a small pilot of 25 mailboxes, and that takes a couple of days, and we want to do it slowly, ensure there are no complications, and all the support is there for the users. But once we are past the pilot, we could really crank up that migration velocity, and we have even done 350 to 500 mailboxes per week, right? So when we are doing very large migrations, 10,000 plus mailboxes, we can get to a point where the velocity can be really high, and really the constraint there is the help desk and the ability of the help desk to just answer the phone calls and just make sure that users are provided the hand holding they need, right? So that, and then finally the handoff and onboarding, right? So one of the really nice things about Office 365 platform is how it has constantly iterated and how it has constantly added services and features that users were asking for, right? Again, when I go back a few years, there were quite a few features that a lot of customers would ask, and Microsoft would say, yep, it's coming, right? It was not ready yet. But now, again, this is a very mature platform. The security requirements, the compliance requirements, the endpoint protection requirements, the ability to administer, let's say, seasonal workers, right? So if you have contractors coming on board for a month, or interns coming on board for a month, and then you need users set up, and then you need users decommissioned. So a lot of these user requests, client requests that were coming in, now they're all part of the administration portal, they're part of the platform. That's what makes it so valuable, is because this has gotten 10 years of client feedback, and now all of that feedback has been coded, it's been tested, and it's available to you at a monthly fee, right? So that's really the nice thing about the value that this brings to your organization from day one. So this is our process. As you can see, we have iterated our way to this methodology. As I said, we have handled mailbox migrations for extremely large banks, 25,000 plus mailboxes, all the way from that size to 100 mailboxes, right? So, all of that is baked into our methodology. So we wanted to share with you some of our case studies. These are all very recent ones. All three of these are from 2020. So healthcare provider, they provide addiction recovery services, and they are a healthcare services provider, and they are a HIPAA compliant organization. So they made an acquisition, and this was a East Coast, West Coast kind of acquisition, and they had multiple requirements, right? So when the CIO sat down and talked with us, they said, hey, look, we have two different organizations, two different Active Directory environments, two different domain names. One of the two companies was already in O365 and the other one was not, okay? They had their own Azure environments, so each one had their own Azure environments, and even the health of the AD environments was different, right? So one was pretty good, one was not so good. So they engaged with us mainly because of just our experience dealing with complex integrations and tenant migrations, and we were able to get the two environments to the same level of Active Directory. We integrated the Active Directory environments. We used AADC, Azure Active Directory Connector, to integrate the Azure tenants, migrated to Office 365, SharePoint migration to online, and then migration of on-prem servers to Azure, right? So this organization, they do not want to have, just hardware, software in data centers, right? So they're not very large. They're about 1,000 employees combined. So they don't feel like they can do data centers as well as Microsoft can, right? So really successful. By doing this, they were able to integrate the acquisition very quickly and start serving patients as a single combined entity. You probably have experience with integration. Sometimes these integrations don't get integrated very well, and a lot of time passes, and the business loses the impact of the acquisition. So this was a very successful engagement. A lot of HIPAA compliance requirements that we had to work our way through, and we'd be happy to kind of share that knowledge with you. AEC company, architecture, engineering services, and construction company. They're based out of Lafayette, Louisiana. So a few months ago, they reached out because all of their data was in their data center, and they were worried that they did not have good enough recoverability of their data, right? If something happened to their data center, then they did not want to lose their ability to service their clients. Also wanted to migrate to Office 365. They wanted to really use Microsoft Teams across the organization to drive collaboration. What had happened over the last few years is they had acquired licenses for WebEx. They had acquired licenses for GoToMeeting. They had acquired some Zoom licenses. So it was a little bit chaotic, right? So they all went and acquired 100 licenses of this and 100 licenses of that, and pretty soon they were spending tens of thousands of dollars on just collaboration software. So once they got into O365, they said, hey, we're just going to standardize on Teams, and that will be a common collaboration platform across the organization. They were able to retire some of those legacy licensing costs from all of these multiple platforms and people setting up meetings and different things. And also, as part of this engagement, we did their VDI in Azure, right? So they were working from home due to the pandemic, but now they wanted to make it a normal thing where they'd be able to work from wherever. And they're big AutoCAD users, so we had to do a lot of testing to make sure that AutoCAD works well for them in the cloud in VDI. And I'm telling you, all of this was great timing because if you go look at the weather today, Hurricane Laura is absolutely hitting all of their geography. So this company has offices in Lafayette, New Orleans, Lake Charles. It looks scary today on just how the hurricane is likely creating a lot of damage, power outages, and so on. And this company doesn't have to worry about, hey, will I be able to service my clients over the next 7, 10, 12 days, right? While the region is suffering. So another one here, this was a very large bank that had East Coast, West Coast operations, one of those big migrations, a lot of different Exchange versions, a lot of complexity in the environment because that Exchange environment was built up over 20 plus years. And we had to create a very elaborate hybrid design and migration plan to get them safely migrated. Compliance was a key requirement, high visibility because they're a bank and they're FDIC insured, so they have a lot of data that they need to protect, obviously. And there was just the sheer size of data was extremely high, and now they're in Office 365, and it's just for those of you that do this on-prem, it's not easy. So now it's just a service they can provide their users and focus on the business. So these are just three of many that we can share with you. Hopefully, this gives you a sense for just the variety of scenarios that we have seen.
Sanjay, thank you very much. And I think you've really communicated what Red8's specialty is here in this space. There's a lot of areas besides licensing and all of the pain points I've mentioned that are available that Red8 can solve. Brian Rock, I do want to cover a few questions that popped up. I did see one regarding the 5 terabytes. I believe that was, I want to say Ian, but maybe I'm wrong. I want to clarify that. So I just looked up that limit. So that is by default you get 1 terabyte per user, which is from an admin perspective. That's per user, not per company. That's per user. These are insane numbers in my book, and that is through the OneDrive interface, right? Meaning you've got a little OneDrive app, and it will synchronize to the cloud, et cetera. You can do it all online. As an admin, you can raise that to 5 terabytes, right, without any intervention from Microsoft. If you need to go above that, you just open a ticket with Microsoft, and they'll give you literally whatever you want. I can't imagine a user needs more than 5 terabytes, but hey, if you do video files and all that good stuff and want to share them, then go ahead. And again, it's available to you. I read that literally just on the Microsoft Docs right now. I wanted to clarify that, make sure I was speaking correctly. The other question I saw was about backups. So that's a great question because Office 365, Microsoft 365 is a high SLA product, right? So any SAAS offering you get is going to be behind the scenes, is going to be replicated for HA purposes. However, it doesn't come with like the backups we may think of, right? Hey, I deleted an email 6 months ago. I want to get that back. Well, right, there's a recovery delete items, all of those original features. But if you need to go back, now this is not a legal thing. This is not a legal hold concept. This is just, hey, I had a PowerPoint I deleted, 9 months ago. I want to get it back because I didn't mean to delete it, right? That's not included, right? So we have another RedTALK coming up about post-migration Microsoft 365 that will be given by our associate, Mr. Brian Jones, on the call. And we are happy to talk to you about those options available to you. I will say this, all of the major backup vendors, Commvault, is the one that comes to mind, all of them all have cloud services around Office 365. So if you already have an investment in a backup system, I would say probably 95% of those vendors are going to have an option to just say, hey, back up my Office environment, right? And it will just take care of it and give you an interface to do restores, et cetera. With the Microsoft Office license, there are the whole legal hold things if you need to do that, right? If you have a policy that says I've got to put these customers on legal hold, that's all available to you. So Brian, did I miss any questions on that?
I don't think so. I think you got them all.
Okay. So with that, I'll wrap up, and I want to thank everybody for being on the call. I want to especially thank Sanjay for that excellent discussion about what Red8's experience is, what our process is, how thorough it is, and how we can help you. And by all means, right, if you have very specific questions regarding something to do with Microsoft 365 or frankly, any Microsoft product, I mentioned the Active Directory, we talk about SharePoint migrations, we cover it all. Feel free to reach out to, I believe it's info@Red8, or if you have a sales rep, reach out to them. We can get on a call, have a lengthy discussion, and happy to help.